Ever had to teach someone a new skill at work? Of course you have. It's something we all do, whether you're a manager bringing on a new hire or you're just showing a teammate how to do one specific task. And let's be real, it doesn't always go so well, does it? Getting this right is absolutely crucial. Because when training fails, everything else starts to fall apart. So today, we are breaking down a foolproof 7-step method to make sure what you teach actually sticks. I mean, this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? You explain a task, you show them how to do it, you feel like they've totally got it, and then a week later, poof. It's like the conversation never even happened. Without the right process, the results can be, well, pretty disappointing. So what is the secret? What makes it work? To figure that out, let's start with a classic training exercise. It involves something called the fire underwriter's knot. Now, it's a special kind of knot used in wiring, and it is the perfect example of why our usual training methods are so flawed. Okay, so in part 1 of this exercise, trainees are just given a sheet of paper. It's got a wall of text on it explaining how to tie this really complex knot. And what happens? Almost nobody can do it. It's too difficult to translate a block of text into a physical action you've never even seen before. It's a total recipe for confusion. All right, so text was a bust. What about a visual? In the next stage, they get a diagram of the knot. No words, just a picture. You'd think that's got to be better, right? Well, guess what? For most people, this doesn't work either. The visual by itself without any context or explanation is just as confusing as the wall of text. And this is the key. This is the big aha moment from the whole exercise. Neither text alone nor a diagram alone is enough. For training to actually be effective, you need a much more complete, more human approach. We need a reliable system that pulls all the right pieces together. You see, this whole knot experiment shows us that the problem usually isn't the employee, it's the training process itself. So let's fix the process. Here is a simple, incredibly reliable 7-step method that will make sure the training you give is actually effective. Okay, here's the whole roadmap. It's not complicated, I promise. First, you're gonna explain the importance, then explain the procedure. After that, you demonstrate, then you observe, then give feedback, express confidence, and finally follow up. That's it. Those are the 7 steps. Let's break them down. All right, step 1. And honestly, this is probably the most important part of the entire process, and it's the one that almost everybody skips. Before you even think about explaining how to do something, you have to start with the why. You have to explain why this task even matters. What's the bigger picture? Let's go back to that fire underwriter's knot. The why here is critical. If you tie that knot incorrectly, it could literally cause a fire. And if that happens, the insurance company might not pay for the damages. All of a sudden, tying a knot isn't just some tiny little task. It has huge consequences. When people understand the why, they actually become invested in learning the how. So now we get into the active part, the real show-and-tell phase. Step 2, explain the procedure in a logical step-by-step way. Then, for step 3, you actually demonstrate it. You do the task yourself so they can see it in action. And then, and this is key, step 4 is to observe them doing it. You just watch them try. This gives you instant insight into what clicked and where they're getting stuck. But you're not done. The training is not over just because they've tried it once. Step 5 is giving feedback and coaching them through the rough spots. And then step 6, this one is so powerful, you have to express confidence in them. Tell them you know they can do it. This builds their own self-belief. And finally, step 7 is to follow up later. Maybe the next day, maybe next week, just to make sure the skill is really locked in. And this brings us to a really important mindset shift. Your role in all of this isn't just to be a corrector pointing out mistakes. No, your job is to be a coach. There is a huge psychological part of learning that we just can't afford to ignore. Just look at the difference here. A corrector just points out what's wrong and moves on. A coach, on the other hand, gives that feedback, but then also actively works to build the person's confidence and follows up later. Just because they can do the task once while you're watching doesn't mean they won't doubt themselves later. When you express your confidence in them and you check back in, you're not just teaching a skill, you're empowering them to own it. And here's the really cool part. Once you master this 7-step framework, you'll realize it's not just for training someone on a simple task. This is a fundamental leadership tool. It applies to a skill that is so much bigger and more critical. Because what is this, really? This whole 7-step process is the blueprint for effective delegation. Think about it.
Every single time you delegate a task, it requires some kind of coaching. You can't just throw a task at someone and hope for the best. By following these steps, you are making sure that the person you delegate to is actually set up to win, and that means better results for everyone.
So let's just quickly run through the big takeaways here. First, real training is so much more than just telling someone what to do or showing them a picture. Second, using a structured 7-step process like this one takes out all the guesswork. Third, your goal is to be a coach who builds confidence, not just someone who points out errors. And finally, this whole method is your secret weapon for becoming amazing at delegation. So I'll leave you with this final thought, a challenge really. Think about your own work right now. What is one task, one responsibility that you could hand off to someone on your team this week? Now imagine using these 7 steps to do it. Just think about how much more effective, how much more empowering that whole process would be.